A cruise ship seeming empty is something I never imagined. I still have trouble with that section of my mind. Every second, a ship with more than 3,000 passengers should be alive with the sound of engines below, footsteps above, music, laughter, and plates clattering in dining areas. However, one deck on that ship felt a little off, too still, too quiet. What's the worst? It was never intended to be there. Aaron is my name. I work in IT back home in Portland, and I'm 32. I've always liked mountains over waves, so I wasn't into cruises, but my younger sister Emily pleaded with me to go. She didn't want to travel alone after landing a last-minute offer on a Caribbean route. Okay, I thought. Free food, a week at sea, and perhaps even some time to recover from a difficult split. Emily was quite different from me. She was gregarious, talkative, and able to engage anyone in conversation. She knew half of our dining table within an hour of boarding. Me? All I wanted was a beer and a peaceful spot to sit. She pulled me into life, and I dragged my feet behind her, as was usually the case between us. It was a good first night. Really, it's too fine. Live music on the pool deck, tropical beverages, and a sunset over the wide ocean. However, I noticed a strange feeling when I returned to our cabin. The constant low buzz of the engines shook the walls. There was a slight metallic odor in the air, like damp steel. Additionally, I heard light footfall coming from somewhere above us when I tried to go asleep. It was a more purposeful passenger shuffle than normal. Slow. You know, like someone pacing. It wasn't anything, I assured myself. Just a late-night jog or a ship settling. Then Emily vanished. I don't mean that Emily got lost in a throng or went missing while intoxicated when I say that she vanished. She was laughing with a couple she had just met in the atrium bar one moment, and then she was gone. I had gone to get us some drinks, namely 2 mojitos as I recall. There was the typical shipboard first night buzz, and the bar was full. I waited for a maximum of 3 minutes. Emily's chair was empty when I returned. She was nowhere to be seen. The couple she had been talking to simply gave me a perplexed look. The woman frowned and remarked, "Your friend just walked off." I hadn't seen her go, but we assumed she was meeting you. It didn't fit the way she had simply disappeared without saying anything. Emily was a lot of things, but she wasn't rude. I looked at the elevators, the casino, and the restrooms. Nothing. Naturally, my phone was in airplane mode or paying the ridiculous roaming fees because it had no service. I was pacing the decks at midnight, trying not to freak out. I didn't notice anything odd until I reached Deck 7. I didn't identify the corridor that was accessible through the stairway entrance. Like the other decks, this one has no artwork or signage, just plain metal walls, bare lights above, and a heavier odor of damp steel. Through the soles of my shoes, I could feel the engines, increasing hum. Perhaps I had accidentally wandered into a crew area, I thought. Then I caught sight of her. Emily. I assumed that was her, however. With her back to me, she stood at the far end of the hallway. Her blue floral outfit, which she had purchased specifically for the vacation, was soggy and stuck to her like she had just walked out of water. Darker than before, her hair cascaded down her shoulders. "Emily!" I yelled. She remained still. Like a malfunctioning fluorescent tube, the lights in the hallway flickered and buzzed. She then took a sideways step, passing directly through a previously inexistent door. I felt sick to my stomach. A second before, the wall had been sturdy. No outline, no seams, only steel. However, she entered it as if it were open. As I tried to comprehend what I had witnessed, I froze. Then I came to a terrible realization. The engines were no longer humming. The ship wasn't moving, and the air was completely quiet. It wasn't until it stopped that I realized how much comfort that continuous engine hum had been providing. The silence was heavy and oppressive, pressing in like a weight. There is never meant to be any quiet on a cruise ship. There is always music coming from the bar, the sound of footfall, and the sensation beneath your feet that reminds you that you are still cutting through the sea. But nothing here. My footsteps echoed too loudly as I pushed my way down the hallway. I felt as though I was walking on a freshly cleaned cellar rather than a luxurious liner as my shoes squeaked against the wet floor. "Emily!" My voice cracked as I tried again. The sound seemed to be swallowed, as if the metal walls were absorbing the sound rather than reflecting it. I ran my hand along the wall until I came to the spot where I believed she had disappeared. It was chilly, slick with moisture. Something, an edge, brushed my fingers. I initially believed it to be merely a metal seam, but when I pressed, the panel moved slightly, as if it were concealing a door. My ribs were smacked by my pulse. All of my logical side wanted to retreat, seek safety, and warn someone. However, terror prevailed over reason because I couldn't go without her. I applied more pressure. With a metallic moan, the panel gave way and swung open just enough to let me in. I was struck by colder, ranker air, something sour, like rotting seaweed combined with salt. I flicked on the flashlight and raised my phone. A second, narrower, unfinished hallway with slowly leaking pipes overhead was revealed by the ray that sliced through the darkness. In that silence, the sound of every drip hitting the floor was deafening. Then, there was music, a little bit, not the raucous steel drums and guitar that had been resonating earlier across the pool deck. This resembled an antique gramophone playing underwater, distorted and sluggish. A ballroom waltz that was so severely distorted that it made the hair on the back of my neck stand up, slowed to half speed. There was nothing else I could do, so I followed it. The corridor curved abruptly before opening onto an area that, I'm positive, shouldn't be on any ship. It appeared to be an incorrect replica of the main dining room. Overhead, rusty chandeliers dripped seawater. Mold had grown on the white linen-draped tables. The cutlery and plates were arranged perfectly, but the water in each glass was stagnant and black. And there were people, shapes that resembled people at least. In eerie synchrony, dozens of them sat up straight at the tables, slowly turning their heads in my direction. They had soggy, swollen, gray-blue skin. Like they had just been pulled from the ocean floor, clothes clung to them. I staggered back, but then I caught sight of her. Emily. Eyes on me, sitting at one of the tables. Her lips were pallid, and water was pouring from her chin as she gave a feeble smile. "Sit," she said in a whisper. She spoke in a raspy voice that sounded like water. "They dislike it when you stand." I was having trouble breathing. I was suddenly overcome by the smell, the silence, and the impossibility of seeing Emily sitting amid those things. My initial reaction was to flee, but she fixed her gaze on mine. They weren't hallucinations or the eyes of a stranger. Brown and green flecked, wide and begging, they were hers. Once more she said, "Sit." But this time, her lips hardly moved, yet I could hear it clearly in my mind. Before I knew it, my knees gave way, and I slipped into the chair across from her. The wood had the feel of something that has been submerged for years. My palms trembled when they touched the table's edge. As if satisfied, all the other figures in the room turned their attention back toward their dishes. The quiet clinking of silverware against china filled the air, yet nobody was eating. Not a single fork was raised. The sound sounded incorrect and mechanical, as if it was intended to simulate life but was unsure of how to do it. Leaning forward, I tried to speak steadily. "We have to leave, Emily." Now she gave a barely perceptible shake of her head. On the unfinished soup bowl before her, a drop of water trickled off her hair. "They won't let us to. You stay here once you get here." My stomach clenched. "What is this location? This isn't the ship." A look of recognition flashed across her face. "Yes, it is, but not the one you got on." She took a deep breath. "It's the other viewpoint. I didn't understand. The part no one is supposed to see, couldn't." My mind raced to come up with a reason. Gas, hallucinations, or possibly a head injury. However, I knew this wasn't a dream because of the shiver that crept through my skin. The chords bent and the warped waltz changed. sounding more like steel moaning under strain. Then, there at the table closest to us, was one of the drowned individuals. Water gathered around his feet as it flowed out his sleeves. A sound flowed out of his mouth as it expanded too wide, causing the flesh to break. Not a shout. Not even a sound. Despite the absence of water, the space was filled with the sound of continuous, smashing waves. Emily winced. Instinctively, I took her hand. It was solid, saturated and freezing. Not a phantom. She gave a single squeeze in return, then withdrew. "They'll see you," she said, "if you don't play along." Then, as if it had been practiced, each person at each table raised their glasses simultaneously. Inside them, the water sloshed, thick and dark. They all turned to face me. A toast. They held their gray hands up, dripping uncontrollably, and even though no words were exchanged, I could feel it, louder than I realized, pounding within my skull. "Have a drink." The same black water was in my glass, which shook before me. Iron and rotting algae were the smells emanating from it. My throat shut. The steel creaked around us, as if the ship itself was waiting for my decision. Emily's gaze flicked to the glass and back to me. "If you don't," she mouthed quietly, "you'll drown anyway." Without my movement, the glass trembled in my grasp, and the liquid within rippled and pulsed as if it were alive. My mouth became parched, milky, lifeless, yet heavy. Like 1,000 pounds pushing into my chest, all eyes were now on me. Don't whistle at night. Don't loiter alone on the lower decks. Don't open doors that aren't marked. And other cautions I'd heard from crew members and other passengers before boarding came to me. Superstitions of stupid sailors. However, here I was, looking directly into the face of whatever reality they had been trying to avoid. Emily's lips scarcely twitched once more, as if she were afraid of being discovered. "Take a sip. Just take a sip." I held up the glass. I was the first to smell it, like rotting ocean in rusted pipes. Bile was climbing my throat as my stomach rolled. I slanted it just enough to moisten my lips, though. I had never felt anything as cold as the liquid. Not as cold as ice, but as frigid as the lack of heat and life. My tongue was scorched, and it quickly spread like frostbite into my veins and chest. Choking, I slammed the glass back down after gasping. There was silence in the room. Every figure that had drowned froze, observing. Long after I put down the glass, I could still see my reflection rippling in the black water. Then, they bent their heads slowly, as if I'd passed. Emily took hold of my hand once more, firmly this time. "We must relocate." Now, the floor moaned beneath us, and the same steel sound reverberated simultaneously everywhere. Overhead, the chandelier wobbled, spilling saline rather than light. As we sneaked out of the room, the drowning ones remained motionless and bent their heads. We staggered into a hallway that I had never seen before. Unlike the ship I had boarded, it was not shiny and well-maintained. The corridor was tiny, rusty, and damp, with pipes dripping continuously and hissing along the ceiling. Here, the engine's hum was deeper, louder, and more heartbeat-like. I muttered, "What the devil is this, Emily? Where have you been?" She gave me a tearful expression, but instead of falling, the tears hovered just over her skin as if gravity didn't exist. "I tried to warn you, but once you see it and are drawn in, there's no turning back." Not really. As we rounded a bend, we came to a door at the far end of the hallway. A door that was out of place. It was white, immaculate, and slightly gleaming. Dry. Since that dining hall, this was the only dry item I had seen. "That's all," she stated. "Your exit." "And you?" She shook her head and gave a feeble smile. "I don't leave." I wanted to argue and drag her along with me, but the hallway trembled fiercely. I belonged to them now. Water rushed toward us as it blasted from the pipes. She remained stuck as I sprinted for the door, resisting her hand's pull. "Go!" She let out a scream before the wave struck. The corridor was drowning in black water when I pushed through the bright doorway. With dry blankets wrapped around me, I woke up in my bed, gasping. Through my blinds, sunlight poured in. The fan on my ceiling hummed. The ship's engine was no longer audible. I laid there for a while, telling myself it had all been a dream. Too many horror films and stories about the ocean have stitched together this nightmare. However, a sharp object brushed into my side when I sat up. I dug into my pocket. My cruise key card was it. Still wet. And when I flipped it over, I saw 3 words in a handwriting I instantly knew, written on the reverse in smudged black ink. Avoid returning.